Hey, so if you guys haven't heard, the CEO of United Healthcare was basically ambushed in the middle of the day yesterday and unalived by a gunman. He's still on the loose. And, it's been interesting to see some of the responses to this incident. And I'm going to caveat this video by saying that I'm not a person who thinks that just because something bad happens to someone, we have to like hold space for them or have empathy for them, you know, depending on what their actions have, been in this lifetime and the impact they've had on other people. But I have to say, I am a bit surprised by people who are in the healthcare system. Now, most of the groups I'm in are physician groups, so that's mostly the responses that I've been seeing. And I've been really surprised at how many of them are just openly like gleeful or saying, basically he got what he deserved, talking about how hard it is to deal with insurance companies. And, that last part, I know that is actually true, having to deal with all this paperwork and prior authorizations and all that. But I think some people who are in healthcare who are having that response, y'all are kind of missing the plot. And the plot is that you're not understanding that this kind of violence is not just directed at people who work for health insurance companies. So, and I'm going to say, I thought this too. Because when I first became a physician, I was really naive about the system and how it works and how physicians are perceived in the system. And so I remember, and I've talked to her before, I used to work in the VA for a long time. And, I was talking to a patient one time, and he was kind of railing against, the system and the government. If you've been in the VA system, you'll know there's not infrequently quite a bit of like anti-government sentiment. And so I was kind of commiserating with this person, and the patient stopped me. He's like, Dr. Dooley, you part of the system too. And again, I know this is naive to say, but I always felt more like I'm working in the system. Yes, I know I'm part of the system because I'm paid, to work here, but I did not realize that people were really perceiving me as being part of the machine that is the problem. So here I am, working after hours, working on weekends, going, what I'm perceiving is like definitely above and beyond 40 hours to get things done and be a good physician. But at a certain level, I'm perceived to be just part of this, dysfunctional system, just like the healthcare CEO, just like the CEO of the hospital. I'm the person who's seeing the patient, and a lot of the frustration and things like that, as the direct frontline care provider, you're getting it. So to think that you would be praising the CEO of a healthcare company getting unalive, not realizing that you may be on the other end of that animus, that negativity, that violence, it's wild. And some of that, the discontent and the frustration comes from people who have had, understandably negative interactions in the healthcare system, or their family members have had those interactions. But also some of it is due to false, just like blatantly false information that's put out on like social media. For example, up until the last patient I saw, there was always someone saying like they knew I was paid by the pharmaceutical company to write prescriptions. Psychiatrists, maybe more than some other physicians, we get that. You're just here writing medicines, you're paid by the pharmaceutical companies. I have never been paid any money by any pharmaceutical company. No matter what I would say about that, people were like, well, again, even if you know that to be factually true, people have certain beliefs and they feel like, but if you're writing prescriptions, you're part of the machine, you're part of the system. So if they have anger about a medication they want to get and they can, or a side effect that they've had, even if you as the physician or the person writing it have given informed consent, don't think that if there is something negative, that violence, that frustration, that you're absent from it just because you're not the person who works for an insurance company, or you're the person who doesn't work for the pharma company. Don't think that as the direct care provider, you're not the person who can get that negativity, okay, the person who can get that violence. And I put this here to say, according to the WHO, about 8 to 38% of healthcare workers have suffered physical violence at any point in their career. And you've heard me talk on here that people who have like severe mental illnesses are much more likely to be harmed by violence than perpetrated on someone else. But there are those cases and situations, not just with people with mental health, but there's just certain circumstances that increase the risk for violence. And if you are a person who is a paramedic, who works in the ED, really any person who's on the front line of healthcare, if you are seeing patients and there is the potential for a negative outcome, you are at a risk for violence as well. So I'm sure this transplant surgeon who was just walking to his car and encountered a disgruntled patient and was unalived by them, I'm sure he never thought that he would be considered part of the system where he might, lose his life over a disagreement he had with a patient. Or these circumstances, here on the first point, a patient who was angry about his continuing back pain went into a hospital in Oklahoma, unalive the surgeon, another doctor, the receptionist, and a visitor. Okay. How many of y'all are seeing people who have chronic pain, who might be angry at the insurance company, say, for denying their spinal cord stimulator, but you're the person who's seeing them. You're the person who has not fixed their pain or managed their pain into a way that they are that they desire or that they're hoping for, you know, or whether the goal is realistic or not. Who do you think is going to be at the front line of getting that violence, that if it's going to be perpetrated? Do you think they're going to go and, you know, do what happened yesterday? I mean, that's possible, but what is a more likely scenario? And you can go here and read more about, you know, harassment and other types of violence that, you know, some healthcare workers have experienced. But I guess that's why, to me, it's like, if you follow Francesca Ramsey, she has a song on here talking about, I never thought the leopards would eat my face. If you're not familiar with that, please check it out. So I just wanted to give some food for thought on that. If you're a person who works in healthcare and you don't realize that violence against that individual person does not amount to violence to the system, and that you are also part of the system, even if you think in your mind, oh, my patients would never, I take such good care of them, you know, I've never had this issue. The circumstances that can create violence like this can happen at any time. And just because you're a great doctor, just because you've filled out all the paperwork, it doesn't mean that you won't be on the other end of that violence. So I guess it's just my message for healthcare workers. If you haven't thought about that, the leopards can eat your face too.